Name is Paul Lee, last name is spelled L-E-A. I'm different. I had a massive stroke in 2010, and it literally killed a quarter of my brain. Doctor said I should be dead, but obviously I'm not.
Paul Davis, and yes, I do have dementia. I've been diagnosed recently, and all I can tell you is I forget. Like, that to me is obvious. Like, even now I'm trying to remember what I was going to tell you. And it's completely gone.
Mom, I'm happy. I hope you're happy where you are. I miss your smile. I miss your energy. I miss holding you. I miss those times we had that even when you were really sick, we were able to be together and do things together. And I swore when you passed away that I would do all I could to make sure that people had the best lives possible. So this is what I'm doing.
I would say that I'm so sorry that I wasn't educated enough about it to provide her with a better quality of care than I did. I feel that if I would have been properly educated, there's so many things I would have done differently with her. I would have been able to understand her better, have better quality time with her. I would have been more patient with her. I probably also would have been kinder to myself if I would have been educated on it. I would have been kinder to my family. I think there are a lot of things I would have done differently, but I certainly would have provided her with a better quality of care. And I feel like I lost a lot of time with her because I spent so much time being angry and just lost. And I wish I would have known what I know now.
My mom lives up in Elliott Lake, and I was down in the Ottawa area, a great distance. And so I wasn't there to provide her the support. And to be quite honest with you, I was probably quite ignorant about the disease. I didn't realize how much it affected her and how much it affected him and how much she really could have used my help. Wow.
The first incident was when he actually went missing. That's when I realized how serious this was. Didn't realize even that moment when he went missing in the community, where we needed police, where there was a search. Fortunately, he was found. It was a fall day. It wasn't the winter, so the weather was in our favor, but it was already around 10 p.m. and it was nighttime that he was discovered actually by a good Samaritan in the community that said, I think this guy's confused and lost. Let's call, for some help. So he was brought to the hospital. So it was the community found him without realizing that he was missing. Okay. Did not realize that prior to that, we were already having numerous missing incidences. Okay, so he'd be coming home late, an hour later. Sometimes he would say, I'm not sure where I went. But we didn't understand that. We didn't realize how dangerous that was.
It was probably when I was in my early 30s, my father, who was at this time in his mid-80s, started telling me that there was something wrong with my mother. And my mother was of Finnish background, and Finns tend to be a little kooky. And, my mother had always, she was a very independent woman, and, probably the early symptoms were a change in her behavior. And my father passed away in 2005, but while he was still alive, kept calling me And at the time I was pregnant with my third child. I was on bed rest, and my father kept calling me and complaining about my mother, that there was something wrong with her. He would send her to the grocery store with a list of items. She wouldn't come back with the right items. She was just always acting very strange. And I kept saying to him, Dad, you know what? It's because of all the stress that you're putting on her. Because at this point, his health was declining over the years. And, you know, it was her role as a caregiver was becoming much more physical. She was carrying him to the bathroom, you know. And so, you know, every time my father mentioned that there was something off with my mother, I kept saying, well, it's because of stress. You know, that's what it is. And at that time, I had my children. As I mentioned, I had 2 kids. I was pregnant with my third child. No idea about dementia. Like, you know, I had heard about it, and in my head, dementia was all about memory. Somebody who had a problem with memory, didn't know anything about it. So we got a referral to go see a neurologist in September of 2006. And like many other people, I wasn't prepared for the medical appointment. You know, I assumed that I was going to go see this doctor, and this doctor was going to be God and tell me what was wrong with my mother. I just went like a deer caught in my headlights with my mother, who went against her will, sitting there. So sit with this doctor, and first thing he says, okay, so why are we here? So I start explaining that I have these concerns for my mother, and she's sitting beside me going, Claire, what are you saying? This is nonsense. Like, what are you saying? So I said, well, I have all these concerns, Mom, about you. So then he pulls out the MOCA test and starts doing the MOCA, which she fails. She was scored a 17 out of 30. And then he looked at me and he said, your mother has Alzheimer's disease. Like, without doing any further tests. It was just based on this. This is his diagnosis. Then he asks me, is your mother driving? And I said, yes, she's driving. And without any warning, he picks up the phone, calls the SAAQ in Quebec, which is the Driver's Bureau, and cancels her license on the spot. Like, right then and there, no warning, and you can just imagine the shock, the fury, like this woman's entire independence was taken away from her, right? So I looked at him and I went, oh my God, like what now? What now? And he says, well, you know, she has Alzheimer's and, you know, she's not able to drive. And I said, well, is she able to live on her own? And he said, no, she's not able to live on her own. And I went, well, now what? And he said, good luck, Mrs. Webster. That's what the prescription of care we got. Good luck, Mrs. Webster. And then he said, you know, there's some information available on the website that you could look at. And that was it. And that is what led me to do the work that I'm doing today. I was provided with we were not provided with any information about this disease, what it is, what to expect, what to do next. Like, it was like, good luck, and that's it.
Angela has been a real trooper. She's she's always made fabulous meals, but she tries to meet my needs as she understands it. Sometimes I'm not even sure what I need. And it's confusing because of what I keep forgetting. And is that the reason why it's confusing? No, my brain is just malfunctions, like it doesn't remember correctly, and I'm always asking Angela, so what time are we going out today? And she'll say, 5 o'clock, okay. But if I don't get that kind of memory, I'm lost.
There are different challenges, I think, for the person who lives with dementia and different ones for family members, I would say. So for the person that's living with dementia, at the very beginning, the challenge is the unexpected. What will happen to me? Will I lose who I am? Will people not recognize who I am? And then slowly seeing yourself having to relinquish some of the options and choices that you have for others to do those for you, and making sure that you're surrounded and people will understand that inside of you there is this person that continues to want to live.
I feared for his safety. He would wander. He was not quite sure where he was. At home, I was afraid that he was going to get into trouble. And I didn't think that I could lift him if he were able to, if he was going to fall. He had problems with incontinence, which is often common with people with dementia, and it's just a difficult thing for everybody, particularly for a caregiver, because it changes your role. You were a partner and now you're a caregiver, and it's difficult.
I think for the family members, it's almost like it's like a grief process of seeing that person that you once knew change. So they change before your eyes, and the hardest thing is to try to accept this new self, this new person, which of course is not new, but they've lost some of their capacities. And so you're sitting by the sidelines trying to help. And of course, since we don't have a cure yet, you have to learn to live with it.
I have no problems telling a person I have dementia. Like, I was at a Kipling subway station many years ago, actually about 2010, 2011, and I've been that station thousands of times because the Service Canada was at Dundas and Dundas and Kipling. So one time I got confused. I couldn't figure out how to get out onto the street. And I walked up to this guy and I said, "Excuse me, I have dementia and I'm having trouble getting out. Like, I want to go out in the street. Can you help me?" He said, "Yeah, just go see that sign up there, and you see the door with the bars on it and everything else. Just go through that, and it'll take you to the street." I said, "Okay, thanks." And about 10 seconds later, "Excuse me, could you say that again?" And he says, "What are you, stupid? Get away from me. Leave me alone." And he very quickly walked away. And that was my first experience with stigma. And it hit me hard. I never experienced anything like that.
I think that we're really starting to break the stigma of dementia. You know, at one point in time, people weren't going to talk about it. It was something that people were being embarrassed about. It's not anymore. It's a disease that is affecting close to 1 out of 5 people. Dementia doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what color your skin, what your religion is, and what you did for a profession, right? It doesn't discriminate. So it's no longer a disease that people are trying to hide. I also think that we're doing a much better job in terms of educating people. I'm very committed to whatever the work I'm doing to make sure that it's appropriate for different cultures, to make sure that I'm translating information in different languages. You know, one of the issues has always been that, you know, information wasn't available in people's languages. People should have access to as much information as possible in the language that they speak. So I think that's been really positive.
I believe culturally in China, there is more of an expectation for the children to take care of their parents and for all the way until death. Whereas within Canada, I believe that the children will take care of the parents to an extent, and once events go beyond their control, then they put them into long-term care homes.
Many people ask, why is your dad not in long-term care yet? There's that cultural piece in that. Okay, so I would say that there's a specific crowd that would always ask me, long-term care, well, we put our parents already there like 5-6 years ago. You should have done that with your dad. I said, from my value system and our culture, it's a little different. Your home community around you, your neighbors, your friends, you know, where you pick up the food, they're the ones that, help with the caregiving in some way. And that's just, again, the upbringing and the value that I come from. Doesn't make it right or wrong, okay, in my opinion. It's just one of those where it's about, you take care of the person as long as possible. Now, some people will interpret that meaning as a sacrifice. So many times it's the adult children that would be caring for their parent. Some will say, well, it's my obligation. Some will say, well, aren't you sacrificing your life? Again, this is where words matter. Okay, so it's something as simple as that word can redefine how you act. And for us, my view is I love taking on challenges. I would always like to try and solve anything I could. I failed a lot, but for the most part, I would say that we were able to figure out a lot of solutions that are not out there yet, or that we learned from others specifically around the cultural piece of saying, you know what, let's get community to help, let's get neighbors to help. Okay, so yeah.
Alors, mon intérêt au niveau de la recherche n'était pas autant au niveau des stades de la démence comme telle. Je m'intéresse plutôt à l'impact que la démence a sur la vie de tous les jours des gens. Par exemple, le diagnostic, allant du diagnostic à la perte de conduite, la cessation de la conduite de voiture, à, par exemple, l'hospitalisation, le transfert aux soins de longue durée, la recherche d'aide extérieure jusqu'aux soins palliatifs. Alors pour moi, c'est très important de voir, peu importe quel stade de la maladie, comment est-ce que cette maladie-là affecte votre capacité de continuer votre vie, de continuer à trouver un sens à votre vie, de votre capacité de vivre ce que vous voulez vivre.
The progress that we make as researchers is because of the participation of people living with dementia and their care partners in research. They're imperative. They are valued by researchers, and without them, the progress that we've made so far and the progress that we will make for generations to come would not be possible.
I think research is very important because all sorts of research, social research in the dementia's behavior, pharmacological research, different drugs at company, understanding of dementia, because people really didn't understand what is causing it. I don't think we still 100% know what's causing it, but it's much more advanced than what was before, So that is very important, and you need people. You need patients or people who are suffering from dementia to volunteer, because by following them, we see the progression. And we need the families, because we're talking to families of how they are managing. So we need both the sides of the equation to be able to do proper research.
So far, we've been really impressed with the generosity of participants and sometimes of patients with dementia and their family, who really donate their time and they donate their effort for science and for the future. So we've been very impressed with that.
Chez les personnes qui sont cognitivement normales, donc qui n'ont aucun trouble cognitif, aucun trouble de la mémoire, il est possible de déceler les protéines tau phosphorylées dans le sang à des niveaux plus élevés que la norme. Et il a été démontré dans plusieurs publications que ceux-ci sont des biomarqueurs de la maladie d'Alzheimer. C'est juste qu'ils sont décelables des années et des années avant le début de l'apparition des symptômes. Donc, puisqu'on est dans un monde où le traitement pour la maladie d'Alzheimer pourrait arriver très prochainement, on pourrait référer ces personnes chez qui les protéines tau dans le sang sont élevées pour pouvoir suivre le traitement pour la maladie d'Alzheimer, alors que cliniquement, ils n'ont pas de diagnostic.
We also have what we call study partners for those healthy controls, those just healthy volunteers from the public, and they can attest to medical history, cognitive impairment. Maybe these people from the public are suffering and it's noticed by the caregiver before it's noticed by the person themselves, or there's denial or fear. So the caregivers are very important actually, and sometimes the caregivers then become part of the study as well, and they enroll and they do the whole sequence with their loved one. So it's kind of a bonding experience, and it's experience for them to learn more together. And I think that knowledge and learning more about the disease and the steps that we have to take to get to the end result that we all want is education, and it's learning. And I think that research is the best way to do that.
I am optimistic, and even in my own PhD 5 years, I've seen so much progress, how the disease is diagnosed is completely changing. The therapeutic options for people is going to completely change. So I'm very optimistic personally about this, but there's still a long road ahead.
I've always been a positive person. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how minuscule it is, it's up to you or me to make it brighter. And because of my positive attitude, I've overcome a lot of things. Like there's no peripheral on the left side. It's gone. And you'd be amazed how many people will get upset when you walk into them, because I'm going this way. but I'm the type of person, you'll never see me sad, you'll never see me down. I might get angry, but I don't get upset. I mean, I've got 70 years, I've got 20 years of life with different things. So I've accepted my life the way it is, and I enjoy life. In the summertime, I go out, I take walks, an average about 10 kilometers a day. I walk along the lakefront, and you see the different wildlife there, see the kids playing in the parks and everything else, and I have my earbuds, my music, and I just pop along, So when I was diagnosed, yeah, it took me back. It didn't upset me. It's hard to describe. It's not that I expected, but it is what it is, and that's the way I look at life.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay, you little bugger. You can record that, little bugger.